Okay, good evening ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Strategy, Finance and Policy Committee. Can I draw to everyone's attention to page 3 within the agenda, which sets out regarding fire safety instructions and the webcasting arrangements. For the benefit of those watching from home and those in the public gallery, members of the committee who can vote are seated in the front row. All other non-members of the committee in attendance are seated in the rows behind, along with one officer who's not a member, but she has taken seat there. No problem. I will just make reference to the fact that we are aware there could be some recording issues. So whilst the stream is live, the visual may not be perfect at home, but we are told that the public can hear us and can see us intermittently. So we think it's important we just press on as planned. So, item 1, apologies for absence. We have received apologies from councillors Lisa Newport, James Newport, Gary Myers and Deborah Squires-Coleman. And we have substitute members Councillor Mike Sutton for Councillor James Newport and Councillor Arthur Williams for Councillor Gary Myers. Item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of September. Are the minutes agreed, members? Agreed? Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Now, given item 9 on the agenda makes reference to a number of parish and town councillors, I'm going to recommend that all parish and town councillors are noted as a conflict of interest, just for the record. And in light of complete transparency, I'm also going to declare an interest because my husband is chairman of Roarth Parish, who are also named in the papers, and I'd sooner be transparent about that. Are there any other declarations of interest, members? No? Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ward.
Thank you. 1476 RAF, we actually rent, we lease a premises in Connaught Road, just in case that is anywhere in part of that report. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Best to be safe than sorry. That's fine. Okay, so item 4, public questions on notice. There have been none received. So moving us straight on to item 5, which is the Digital Strategy Action Plan. This report begins on page 15. And I'd like to just note, you have all received an email, but please note that an amendment relating to the RAG rating on pages 19 to 23 was circulated to members yesterday. So do members have any questions on this item? No? In that case, I'm going to move straight to recommendations. We have 3 recommendations. Are you happy for me to take those on block, members? Okay, I will propose them. Do I have a seconder? Okay, so I will just read through the recommendations and take that vote on block. Recommendation 1, that the Digital Action Plan in Appendix A be approved. Recommendation 2, to note that officers will update the Digital Action Plan as organisational priorities change with annual progress reports to committee. And recommendation 3, to note that officers will bring a further report to committee if major changes to the digital strategy or extra funding are needed. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Tim, you're welcome to stay and watch the rest of the meeting, but if you want to slip off, be our guest. Thanks very much. Okay, moving on. Item 6, which is the Q2 performance for 25-26, and the report begins on page 25. Do members have any questions on this item? Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I've never asked if you want to be called Madam Chair, Chair or Chairman. You don't mind. There's just a few queries, and thank you for writing down the colours, the report preparer, but I've managed to notice a couple of... I've raised this at the last meeting, or the meeting before, about the amber, red, green, and the first question I've got is, it's really some clarification around the arrows. So in the report we've got RAG status, which is, there's a colour, then it says green, then it's got an arrow which can go up, or it can go to the right, or it can go down. On page 30 of the report, as an example, we've got the first one, which is fees and charges process. we've got green, green, green. So overall status is green, risk status is green, issue status is green. They're all the same colour, even I can see that. And the arrows are going up. The one below that, we've got overall status green, risk status green, issue status green, and the arrows are pointing to the right. And I just want some explanation of why that happens. I can think of a couple of reasons why it might happen, but I just think we need an explanation of why that would be the case. On page 33, this is appendices C, by the way. I don't know what colours they are, but we've got an overall status. So this is corporate plan deliverables. We've got overall status. I'm guessing the colour is amber, then it says amber, then it's got an arrow pointing to the right. Then we've got risk status. I assume it's green, says green, arrow to the right. Issue status, green, green, arrow to the right. So I'm not sure what really I want to know what the arrow says trend, so is it just meaning that we're happy that it's amber and it's continued to be amber? We're not trying to improve it from amber to green? That's that, so that should be fairly obvious.
Would you like me to come back on that item now?
I'm just going to add another one, which
Okay.
is page 33, which has got, again, red. Again, page 33, it's Cyber Working Group Action Plan. It's overall status green, risk status red, issue status red, and they've all got arrows pointing right, which I've been told is, and the arrows are green. Should they be red if it's a red one? And I'm not sure why the overall status can be green if the other two are red, for instance. So that's page 33. OT PRJ 365. Sorry, I broke my glasses and I'm having trouble reading some of it. Cyber Working Grouping Plan. That's that, and then I've got a question a little bit further on page 44, which I can come to afterwards if you want.
Yeah, okay. So in regards to the arrows, and an officer will correct me if I'm wrong, but we touched on this last time, that's the trend since the last meeting, since the last report. If it was amber before and it's still amber now, the trend will be moving sideways. If it's gone from amber to green, there'll be an upward arrow. If something had gone down and we've gone backwards.
Ambitious. We had an average wait time of over 16 minutes, I believe it was, for the last year. And I just wonder what... I would imagine it's always going to be red if we're just setting a 1 minute answer time. It just seems incredibly ambitious. I was looking through and I'm not sure of any, not even the ambulance service can answer that quickly. So I just wonder if some of these we're using the right criteria. Should we be changing that?
Thanks very much, Councillor Hoy. And again, we touched on some of this at the last meeting because we've got we're looking backwards. The beginning of the table is previous months and years, and then we're moving forward. But you're right, it has gone down. The call time has increased, and the council have given an indication as to why. But I made this very point that actually KPIs are there for performance indicators, and if they're set wrong, you're always going to miss them. Whilst we don't want to make it too easy, we don't want a table of green that doesn't represent good customer service. What we don't want is a table of red because we're setting the ambition way too high and it being undeliverable. And I think the point has been made that things have changed. When you had a shorter waiting time, it was when we was all using landlines, and actually it was a nuisance to be on hold, but people expect to be on hold a few minutes nowadays. We want to keep those call times as short as we possibly can, but we also want to encourage people to use the website and the question and answer pages, because a lot of the calls that we get could be answered in other ways. But I recognise what you're saying. I'm hand over if any officers want to add anything to that about any of the steps we're taking or trying to take.
Sorry, I don't have any more information. Sorry, apologies. But I can get some more information from the relevant director, if that's okay.
If a member's minded for officers to take that away and look at a realistic KPI, because I agree that customer service, you're never going to answer the phone that quickly unless we over-resource the department, and we all know employment in the public sector is not the easiest of things to manage anyway. So maybe members want to go and do a review of the KPIs as a whole, and then we can consider that at our next meeting and see how we feel that looks. Councillor Linden, I think I saw your hand. Sorry.
It's probably less of a question, but more of a perhaps we could do better next time. So it's quite clear that there were phone calls around the new waste collection with the new food caddies, which it's quite clear we hadn't really prepared for properly. I think we clearly underestimated or didn't really plan for the amount of calls we might get for a very, very new system. And I know you, Chair, have dealt with these as well, because I know you've had queries and you've dealt with those through the officers. I know other councillors have as well, and we've asked people. So I think perhaps when we are introducing things in the future, we should be planning better for queries which were definitely going to be coming through the system. And I think this is where we failed on this one. We didn't anticipate the amount of extra calls we would get or extra queries we would get.
Thanks very much. That's noted, and I think that the team did put steps in place, but there was an unprecedented amount of contact, as you've highlighted, and that has been noted. Councillor Lindham.
Thank you, Chair. During a meeting yesterday with Greg, I did actually talk at length with him. I won't go into details now, but if the officers would like to speak to him, he has taken it away, and he is looking into the situation regarding the length of calls and the direction of where those calls are going to.
Thanks very much. Okay, members, this item is just for noting, so unless there's other... Oh, sorry, Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Chairman. On that same block under Customer Services Key Performance Indicators, I appreciate that the comments at the end have to be written at a certain point in time, but I have highlighted which we aim to fill in October. Now, I'm always very conscious of our vacancies because obviously that produces stretch with existing staff. I accept that reports have to be written, as I've said, but we aim to fill. I'll note that, but I think it would be nice if when we get these reports, officers could just give us a little update on those sorts of comments in the light of the fact it's now 18th of November and hopefully those vacancies have been filled.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Point well made. Have we got any update on the vacancy factor on this item, or are we still carrying those vacancies and looking to recruit? Okay.
We can come back to you with an answer to that to see if there is a permanent position occupied.
Thank you. So we'll ask Sam to circulate that to members to let them know if the position has changed. Thank you. Members, are there any other questions or points on this report, or are we happy for noting? Noted? Thank you. Okay. Item 7. Fees and charges. Okay, so this is fees and charges 26 to 27 for legal services, street naming and numbering and land charges. The report begins on page 3 of the supplementary agenda, which you should have all received. Do members have any questions on this report? No? I will just make a quick point. Councillor Wilson and I have, through numerous conversations and meetings, we asked the council to go away and do some benchmarking, because this was one area of fees and charges we were quite comfortable with going as high as possible, given the nature of the charges are largely around developments and sites. So we have been told we are there or thereabouts in terms of the highest we can go to, which is why we haven't pushed it any further. But I thought it was relevant to let members know that we had explored that and we did get benchmarking done across Essex, so we know our fees and charges are thereabouts. So we have 3 recommendations here. Are members happy for those to come on block? Yep. Okay, so for the purpose of the camera, I'll read the 3 recommendations out and then take one vote. Recommendation 1, agree to the proposed charges for 26-27 as attached in Appendix A relating to land charges, fees and charges to this report, subject to the annual budget setting process. Recommendation 2, agree to the proposed charges for 26-27 as attached in Appendix B relating to street naming to this report, subject to the annual budget setting process. And recommendation 3, agree to the proposed charges for 26-27 as attached in Appendix C relating to legal fees and charges this report, subject to the annual budget setting process. All those in favour? Thank you. If there are any officers that are now complete, you're also welcome to leave and welcome to stay. But we will move swiftly on to item number 8, which is Q2 budget update. The report begins on page 47. Do members have any questions on this item? Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. And you won't be surprised, this probably goes back to one we've raised quite frequently in these meetings, which is about staffing underspend. We've got it in development control, got it in some of the others as well. It's just a concern about this will clearly affect our capacity to do our work properly. Is there some explanation of what we can do around development control? It's underspend of 31,000, mainly due to vacancies. There was another one further down, which I can't find. That was licensing. Might have been licensing. Yes, we understand that some officers left there, and we wondered how that's affecting the licensing team. I have heard anecdotal reports that there have been problems, but obviously anecdotes are different to actually reality. So can we have some assurance that we're addressing those problems and that we're just an understanding of how that's affecting our capacity to do the work?
So as a general response, the vacancy factor, since I've joined the council, has always been an issue that we have tackled. It's not unique to this year or any other year. It's something that we've all faced, and I think we will continue to face until this council no longer exists. Positions are being recruited to. It's my understanding, you've mentioned licensing there. Licensing is now fully resourced, is my understanding at the last update. I stand to be corrected if anything has changed since then. The same within the Planning and Development Committee department. There's been some positions filled recently. I don't know if any officers want to give specific updates, but what I can reassure you is there are vacancies being advertised via the internal portals. You'll see them through the member updates that come out via the officers, LinkedIn, and every other resource that we have available to us to recruit. And we're also making it clear that we need to use the private sector for some of these departments where needs must, planning being a prime example of that. So we have asked not to just restrict ourselves to the typical recruitment process. We need to look at all options because we're up against it with the amount of work that needs to be done. But is there any officer that wants to add anything to that regarding vacancy? No? Okay. So yeah, I will double check specifically on licensing, Councillor Hoy, because you raised that. But overall, we continue to recruit. We will continue to face challenges and we'll do the best that we can to fill them. Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Chairman. Really backing up Councillor Hoy's point, I'd highlighted exactly those points. But I do, without going back on the ground that Councillor Hoy has covered very well, I would ask, and it may be already going on, but I would ask that the moment that we know about a vacancy occurring, there is every effort to put in a process to recruit. Because I think there is a bit of a tendency, and it's a tendency across a number of businesses, to wait until that person has gone, or perhaps a day or so before they leave, and then sort of think, oh dear, we better recruit. And I don't know whether, I'm sure that's not actually going on, but I would like to see some reassurance of that even the recruitment area, the HR area, isn't stretched with resource that they're not able to deal with this. Because it is, on one hand, the finance people rub their hands and sort of say, oh, we've got an underspend. But that's not the objective of this administration. Quite the reverse. It is to actually recruit up to the budget and ensure that our service delivery is in line. So I would just make an appeal, and they can come back to us out of this meeting, and just reassure us that on the day we know someone is leaving, processes are put in place to recruit immediately. So it's just building on Councillor Hoy's point. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And to give some reassurance, I did contact Nicola Mann just a few days ago asking for a report on the vacancy factor and what that looks like for the organisation, because we see them in reports like this, but actually seeing it in front of us would be much easier to understand and digest. But I will ask that Jackie notes that for Nicola to come back to us and let us know what the recruitment process is being followed and how efficient it is to ensure that we fill those spots at the earliest possible opportunity. Are there any other points, members, or are we happy to note the budget update? Noted. Thank you. Okay, David, you're also welcome to leave unless you're happy to stay for the final items. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, members, so we'll move on to agenda item 9. Before I open to questions, I just want to highlight a couple of points. Page 62, 3.5 should read 2026, not 2025. And page 70, row 10, should read Rayleigh FC, not Rayleigh Town FC, just for clarity for those watching at home that haven't had anything circulated. So, in regard to this item, I will open up to members for questions. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple. I think the first one I want to raise, I have raised it with you personally as well, but I think it's worth raising in this meeting. There are some items on the expression of interest which are long leasehold. For example, there's a couple in Holbridge, which I know well. One is the Pauls Lane car park, and another one is the Kendall Park, for instance. They're on long leaseholds. To the council, I think well over 100 years to run on them. To my mind, they might have been ideal assets to transfer to a parish council. That they're already running them, it gives them a little bit more freedom. Obviously, there should be something put in there that they can't sell it to build on, for instance. But is there a reason why that they're not being moved forward at this stage? That's the first question. And that applies to anything on the long leasehold.
Thank you. Within the strategy, and again, I can be corrected, but the strategy actually says that our CAT policy, the community asset transfer, relates to long leases, to transferring them via a long lease, not in terms of its entirety. So actually, because they've already got a long lease, they already have the asset in that regard. So any of these CATs that we're looking to progress, in the most part, would be looking to progress via a long lease agreement. So that's why officers recommended within the report not to move those forward, because they're already benefiting from that lease. That is, as the strategy said, and any variance on that would have to go through a different process. So that's my understanding on that item. Anything to add, or you? Okay.
Yep, as you say, the process and principles that I brought to committee in September outlined that community asset transfer would ideally be on a long leasehold basis, and as those have got a substantial unexpired term, there's no real advantage going down the route of community asset transfer than they already enjoy it under the terms of those leases.
Councillor Hoy, you wanted to come back with some other points?
Yeah, thank you. The second one is, I'm not sure how much I can say in this meeting. So item 1011, the Grange Community Centre. It is a community centre. I noticed in the stage 1, check 3 strategic use, it mentions a future expression of interest for a third party provider which would generate income to the council. I'm a little bit unsure about this. Community centres which I've seen which work, for instance, the Hockley Community Centre, which I believe is owned by Rochester District Council, but that's not rented as such. It's run by a community group and reasonably successfully. Holbridge Community Centre is owned by, the land is owned by the Holbridge Parish Council, for instance, and is let at a peppercorn rent, if anything, to the community centre there, and that runs successfully. The Grange Community Centre is let to the Grange Community Centre, and I'm not sure it could be regarded as successfully in the same way as the two I've just mentioned previously. So I think we might, if we're trying to use these as income generating assets, I think for this asset that might be a little bit of a problem. Is there any rationale behind that, please? Could I have an explanation of why that one is there for that?
If I come in first, then I'll hand over. So in the first instance, first off, the lease hasn't been surrendered yet, so that's why we can't progress regardless yet, but we want the expressions of interest because we know it's coming into use. I don't think a decision has been taken, because we certainly haven't taken it, that it is going to be a commercially, an asset that brings in a commercial income. However, I think the option is there to look at that, because the council needs to look at all the options. So it's about not limiting what comes next, because as a committee we need to take those decisions and look at those. But I'll hand over to Andy in case he wants to add anything more technical.
Yeah, I mean, that's correct. So obviously when we go out to market our assets, there's an option that they'll bring in some income, but there's also an option that the market rent will be offset by the social and community values, which is part of the process negotiation. So nothing's going to guarantee, but obviously we would be looking for sort of income potentially, but also look at the social and the community value that those groups would bring, and then we make a decision on like a case by case basis.
Just very quickly, and not a complaint, I'm really pleased to hear the word used, the social and community value. I'm really pleased that that's been looked at as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoyer. Councillor Williams? Covered? Okay, no problem. I'm going to make Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Chair. Just a really pedantic point. On Appendix A, it's saying stage 1 checks, stage 2 checks. Sorry, stage 1 check, stage 1 check 2, stage 1 check 3. Isn't that supposed to be stage 2 in the report? Yeah, it should be stage 2, stage 2, stage 2, right? Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, because I got a bit confused that earlier when I was reading it. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Sorry, it's pedantic.
Yeah, but as you say, stage 1 is when the expression of interest is made.
Stage 2 is
coming right for stage 1.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Thank you. My next question, my last question, is just kind of around parish and town councils don't work at a sort of like a very sort of agile pace, and they've got to have time to think about things, and they've got to have time to get their budgets in line or find funding. And with kind of some of these things, we're saying don't progress to stage 3 and then give them a chance to come back later. But it might be too late for them to do so given the short timeline we've got of LGR. So I'm a bit concerned around that, basically, and I'd like to know thoughts of everyone on that. Thank you.
You've essentially taken the words out of my mouth, because that was about what I was about to say on a couple of these items. Whilst we can't progress to stage 3 tonight, and there's a varying number of reasons as to why, certainly around the Grange, around Rawrath and the sports pitches, around the Freight House. What we don't want is for everyone to go away and do nothing. We want people to go away, be looking at those EOIs. And one of the things that I was going to ask tonight is that members are minded to have our officers continue those conversations with those interested parties and any others that come forward, so that we can get to a point that I'm going to ask for another recommendation to be added to this that says this item is a stay on the agenda. So every single meeting we have, we discuss this item, because there will have been movement within that 2 or 3 month period. And I think we need to see that, otherwise we run out of time anyway. So I'm minded to ask officers to continue those conversations. And you've raised a couple of good examples, the Grange being one, and there's others on here, because what we don't want is any of these interested parties that have come forward to think tonight is the end. And I've had a few emails and messages of that ilk, and that's not the case. It's that we can't decide today, but what we are definitely encouraging is continue those conversations, because the expressions of interest that have come in, are they suitable? They all got past those first checks, so we know they're on the right path, but we need to work together with them to strengthen them, to understand what's best, and to make sure it fits in line with our corporate strategies. So if that covers that off for you, I think we ask officers to write back to all the EOIs to let them know the outcome tonight, but to ask to start progressing in questions, answers and so on.
That's fine. And I guess what I would say is community asset transfer has to be carefully considered, and that's both from a asset owner's perspective, but also those that seek to make the applications. So, as the Chair has said, it is an ongoing process. We'll keep up the dialogue, and those expressions of interest will come in as and when organisations feel that they're able to take those forward.
Thank you. And one thing I will add, and this is for officers as much as members, where we're continuing to do, for example, condition surveys and getting more information about the assets that we hold, we need to share some of that information with these bidders, for want of a better word, because actually they may be interested at face value, but when they get a bit more detail about the asset, they may step back. And what we don't want to do is hang our hat on something that actually isn't a dead cert. So I think those open channels of communication are really important to streamline as much of the process as possible. And if members are minded to, I will ask for a recommendation to add recommendation 5, that this item comes back to the next committee and every committee thereafter. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilson. Do I need to take a vote on the amendment first? No, we can do that if members are minded. Okay, so on that basis, are there any other questions or points to raise on this item? So we have 4 recommendations plus the 5th that I've just suggested. Are members happy to take those en bloc? Okay, so for the purpose of the camera, I will read them out swiftly as I can. Recommendation 1, that the committee notes and approves the outcome of the Stage 2 community asset transfer process as set out in Section 3 and Appendix A of the report. Recommendation 2, that the committee agrees to the recommendations in respect of whether to proceed or not proceed to Stage 3 of the community asset transfer principles and process as set out in Section 3 and Appendix A of the report. Recommendation 3, that the council-owned asset known as the Rose Garden Southend Road be declared surplus to requirements so that the application for community asset transfer can proceed to Stage 3. Recommendation 4, that the committee endorse future expressions of interest, EOIs for the Freight House and the Grange. Recommendation 5, that this item come forward to the next committee meeting and those thereafter. All those in favour? Okay, sip of water after that. Okay, thank you. So that takes us on to item 10, which is the committee work programme. So notwithstanding the last recommendation that we just made, that we'll see that come forward, are there any other points or questions on the work programme? Councillor Hoy?
Thank you, Chairman. I believe that as a committee, as the main committee of this council, we should be adding to the February one in particular, and probably to every meeting, local government reorganisation. This is going to be key. We will know the outcome by February. Hopefully we'll know it before Christmas. Whether we agree whatever decision is made or not, we're going to have to go with it and we're going to have to work on it. I've been speaking to other councils over the last weekend and previous weekends on various courses and conferences I've done, and a number of councils are already speaking to other councils which they expect to be aligned with, shall we say. I know we might not want to go down that route yet because we might not want to preempt what's going to happen, but I think we should by February know that and need to be in a position to start doing that. So I'm just asking if we can add local government reorganisation to this report.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. Members, are you in support of that? I think we, as you say, we put that on every agenda item until such time that there is no more committee to report to. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anything else to add or to comment on? No? Okay. So do we note the committee programme, notwithstanding the amendments? Fabulous. So that's just for noting. So on that, I close the meeting at 8:04. Thank you.